Alright, hello everyone, how are you all doing today? I myself am doing rather well, and just basking in the insanity of the world right now. Every politician you can find is just catering to the mob, bending over backwards for majority outrage, and now a police officer is facing the death penalty because of what? Because he tried to do his job. He tried to take a drunk driver, a criminal who was known to be a child abuser, off of the streets, who decided that instead of getting arrested, he would wrestle with two officers and take one of their tasers, which can be deadly. And no, this guy is being glorified as some unwitting participant in police brutality, and Officer Geralt is being dragged through the mud to be made to look as evil as possible in order to make this justified. Let's get into it then. Geralt Rolfe, the Atlanta police officer fired after the killing of Rayshard Brooks last week, now faces 11 charges, including felony murder, which could potentially lead to the death penalty, a Georgia district attorney announced Wednesday. A second officer, Devin Bronson, is facing 3 charges, including aggravated assault. Fulton County District Attorney Paul Howard Jr. said at a news conference. During the announcement, Howard said that Bronson had agreed to give a statement against Rolfe and become a state's witness, but Bronson's attorneys later dispute that claim. And it's just crazy how quickly they try to get people to turn on each other, and Howard here keeps doing it throughout throughout his statements. He honestly told the DA's office everything that happened during a lengthy interview yesterday, attorney Don Samuel told Fox News. He will continue to tell the DA or the GBI or any other investigator what happened, but he is absolutely not guilty of any crime and will not plead guilty and has not agreed to be a state's witness. Brooks was shot and killed outside a Wendy's restaurant, which was torched and burned for whatever reason the mob felt justified, where he'd apparently fallen asleep in his car in the drive-thru lane. He allegedly failed a field sobriety test and ultimately was seen wrestling with the officers and running with one of their tasers leading up to the shooting. And we have full video of all of this too, so we can prove that everything was calm and normal until up to the point where they tried to arrest him. And apparently this guy was on probation as well, so a DUI would have sent him back into jail. And so in his mind, he thought that this was the better option for whatever reason. Bronson's attorney said he suffered a concussion when Brooks knocked him to the ground during the scuffle. Howard said investigators had reviewed at least 8 videos of the incident, including police body and dashcam images, as well as Wendy's surveillance footage and cell phone recordings taken by witnesses at the scene. We concluded at the time Mr. Brooks was shot that he did not pose an immediate threat of death or serious physical injury to the officer or officers, Howard said at the news conference Wednesdays. And this is the point where you realize this guy is being disingenuous and catering to the mob even heavier than he was before. He absolutely has to make sure that the officer looks as bad as possible in order to justify what people are putting him through. Brooks, 27, was seen running across the parking lot with a bright object in his hand, which the Georgia Bureau of Investigation said was the stolen taser, as the officer chased him, also carrying what appeared to be a taser. Brooks turned back, extended the object, and then the officer in pursuit opened fire with a handgun. In a statement, lawyers for Rolfe said their client used permissible force under the circumstances. And I would agree with them. The guy wrestled two police officers off of him and took their weapon. Took a weapon, the taser. Officer Rolfe heard a sound like a gunshot and saw a flash in front of him. Because he just got knocked on his house, what else was he supposed to do? Gain control of all his senses right away? Fearing for his safety and the safety of the civilians all around him, Officer Rolfe dropped his taser and fired his service weapon. The charges against Rolfe included felony murder and aggravated assault, some in connection with a stray bullet that struck a bystander's occupied vehicle. Attorneys for both officers describe how they rendered aid, called an ambulance, and performed CPR on Brooks. But Howard, the district attorney, said in the news conference that Brooks did not receive medical attention for over 2 minutes and the officers first allegedly kicked and stepped on him. Which, if true, they were probably checking if the guy was still a threat. I mean, he was shot 2 times, so I'm surprised that they would do something like that, but if true, it is a difficult situation. Officer Rolfe actually kicked Mr. Brooks while he laid on the ground. Howard said the Atlanta Police Department fired Rolfe and reassigned Brosnan following the incident. The city police chief also offered her resignation. Chris Stewart, a lawyer for Brooks's widow, who spoke at Howard's press conference, said the family and legal team were unaware of the allegation that Rolfe had kicked Brooks while he was down. Yet we have no video of that, even though the whole situation seemed to be filmed from start to finish. Really? Even in dark times like this, you have to try and see the light, he said. And the positivity of the situation is the courageousness of Officer Bronson to step forward and say what happened was wrong. It is officers like that who change policing. Bronson's attorney later said he had spoken with District Attorney's office and answered all of the investigators' questions, but they also called the charges against their client an abuse of power and reiterated that he had not agreed to testify or plead guilty. During a question and answer period of the news conference, Howard dismissed a question about being in the middle of a runoff election, and there we have it. There we have why he's working so hard to get these officers the maximum punishment. Because somewhere in his mind, he feels that this will make him look in the best possible light. Let's deal with Brooks today, he said. We can deal with the election tomorrow. He went on to propose the idea of giving prosecutors the ability to indict police officers without first going to grand jury in similar cases as a means of police reform. He also called for eliminating both sovereign and qualified immunity in police cases. And I have just finished saying it, but I will say it again. Absolute insanity the way things are being handled right now. Everybody's so afraid of being called a racist and bending backwards for mob rules that they are willing to put the death penalty on the table for this situation. People are defining this as cooperating, even though he resisted arrest, stole a weapon, turned that weapon on the officers, and that is cooperating in their minds. Absolutely insane, absolutely filled with idiocy. I can't believe this is happening in our world, but it is. And the reason most I did this video is to have as many voices against what's happening to this officer, so that people know that they're not alone in thinking that this is wrong. how much they are just shitting on this guy just to make him look as bad as possible and get him on false charges, I would say. Now, I know this isn't the best video, but if you did enjoy my coverage, go ahead and leave a like, possibly even subscribe. Until next time, I hope you guys take care.